Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Brajajana Randana Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Shodanandana Brajajana Randana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavina Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 18th day of May 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 12, entitled Devotional Service. Text number 17. Yo narishyati nadreshti, yo narishyati nadreshti, nashochati nakangshati, nashochati nakangshati, shubhashabha parityagi, shubhashabha parityagi, bhaktiman yaksame priyaha, bhaktiman yaksame priyaha. Yo narishyati nadreshti, yo narishyati nadreshti, nashochati nakangshati, nashochati nakangshati, shubhashabha parityagi, shubhashabha parityagi, Bhaktiman yaksame priyaha, bhaktiman yaksame priyaha. Synonyms. Yaha, one who, na, never, rishyati, takes pleasure, na, never, dveshti, grieves, na, never, shochati, laments, na, never, kangshati, desires, shubha, of the auspicious, ashubha, and the inauspicious, parityagi, renouncer, bhaktiman, devotee, yaha, one who, saha, he is, may, to me, priyaha, dear. Translation. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. Purport. A pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain and loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. If he loses anything which is very dear to him, he does not lament. Similarly, if he does not get what he desires, he is not distressed. He is transcendental in the face of all kinds of auspicious, inauspicious, and sinful activities. He is prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is an impediment in the discharge of his devotional service. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, text 17, chapter 12. So all of these qualities, Rishyati, Dveshti, Shotati, Kankshati, these are material symptoms. This is the part of the duality of the material world. Krishna described in chapter 7 how everyone who comes into this material world does so in the following way. Itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. So the first thing is itcha. Itcha means desire, to want something. And in this case, Srila Prabhupada describes how we desire something independent from Krishna. We desire to enjoy independent from Krishna. And along with that comes dveshti. Itcha dvesha, which is abhorrence to serving Krishna. And from that arises samutena dvandva moha, the delusion of duality. This is good, this is bad in the material sphere. Because if something is good for my sense gratification, it's good. Otherwise it's bad, I have to avoid it or combat it. So from that dvandva moha, dvandva mohena, these are all instrumental. Itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham. All living beings are bewildered. Their knowledge, the original knowledge is covered. Some completely, sammoham, and therefore sargayanti parantapa, they come into this material world. So this is, he's describing exactly the opposite. The devotees who are dear to him, advanced devotees, they're narishiti nadveshti. They never take pleasure in things separate from Krishna. So if something is normally very pleasing, they're not excited, they're not attracted to try to enjoy it separately from Krishna. Similarly, those things that are painful also don't disturb them. They don't try extraordinary means to try to avoid the natural miseries of this material world. This is what material life is all about. In other words, they don't let either the attraction or repulsion interfere with their devotion to Krishna. This is what it means to be a pratyata, that famous verse, Savai Pangsang Panodharma, Yato Bhakta Hokshajeya Haitukya Pratyata Yatma Supasidati. For the soul to be fully satisfied in his service, then these qualities have to be there. It has to be unmotivated by anything material. You can't mix in material motivations, and it must be uninterrupted by anything. There's always a service to be done, and as Prabhupada mentions here, he's prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, difficulties and anxieties and so forth, for the satisfaction of the Lord. So it's exactly opposite to this material mode of the dualities. And Noshochati and Kankshati, this is straight out of the 18th chapter. Brahma Bhuta, Prasanatma, Noshochati and Kankshati. Samaksavesha Bhuta Shiman Bhakti Mlamate Param. The Brahma Bhuta platform, if you read a couple of verses before that, and I think it's 1854, he describes how one rises to the platform of Brahma Bhuta. And basically it means rising above the dualities, and that happens naturally by the process of bhakti. So the 26th verse of the 14th chapter describes how to transcend the modes. Mam chiyo avibcharena bhakti yogena sevate sogunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So this has to come to the Brahma Bhuta platform. So by the process of bhakti yoga, sadhana bhakti, all the things we do, one should come up to this point if it's unfailing in every circumstance, where you're transcendental to the modes. Means you're not moved around by the dualities, and that's a Brahmabhuta platform, which symptoms are naturally joyful, not hankering after material things, not lamenting for material loss, and seeing everyone equally. And then in that state, one can attain real bhakti. So there's a distinction between bhakti yoga, the practice, and bhakti, the actual experience, of loving exchange with Krishna. So here, Shubhashava Parityagi. So this means that things which are inauspicious may come, and that doesn't disturb you. Things which are very auspicious may present themselves. You don't get elated by that. It's just the movements of the material energy. You have your other platform, which is your devotional service. So this is basically you're doing your devotional service constantly, even 24 hours, Prabhupada says, you're internally. And material world is doing its thing, of dualities, attraction, repulsion, but you're not moved by that. That is not the criteria by which you're acting. And here Krishna says such a devotee is very dear to him. Nothing is an impediment for the discharge of his devotional service. This is straight out of the apratiyata, And that can only come when one has really developed a relationship with Krishna. And you'll do anything to maintain and continue acting in that relationship. No matter what happens, even the physical body dies, but within you continuing that relationship, and that's the perfection. Okay, let's do the next verse. Verses 18 and 19. I'll say, you say. Samakshatraucha mitrecha tata mana pamanayo shitoshna sukadukeshu samaksanga vivarjitaha tullinindastutir mauni ni santushto yena kenachit aniketas tiramatir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. Purport. A devotee is always free from all bad association. Sometimes one is praised, and sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. But a devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress or happiness. He is very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only of essentials, and the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak for the sake of the Supreme Lord. A devotee is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get very palatable foodstuffs, sometimes not, but he is satisfied. Nor does he care for any residential facility. He may sometimes live underneath a tree, and he may sometimes live in a very palatial building. He is attracted to neither. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. We may find some repetition in the descriptions of the qualifications of a devotee, but this is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna. One who is not a devotee has no good qualifications. Good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them. So, there's so many echoes here from previous chapters. This word samaha appears all over the place in the Bhagavad Gita. Equipoised, equal, both in how you deal with others and see others. Vidya bane sampanne brahmane gavihastine shunichaiva pakita pandita samadarshanaha. Samadar, he sees equally the learned and gentle Brahman and the cow and the dog eater and things like that. So Shatro and Mitra, the enemy and the friend. Well, that means that you're seeing through the eyes of Shastra, the transcendental eyes, you're seeing the soul. And the specific way in which people are dealing with you. In other words, you don't have an enemy. If you're a sadhu, sadhus don't look on any living beings with enmity, even those who have enmity toward them. So that's what it means. If someone may have enmity toward you, but you're equipoised in that, you're not affected. And your friend, you don't, it's fine you have a friend and you use that friendship to advance in Krishna consciousness, to help them advance, but it doesn't change your basic steady consciousness. And manapamanayo, being honored or defamed, this is often very difficult to attain. Naturally, if someone insults you, you immediately feel something. But not if the flow of your bhakti to Krishna is very strong and powerful, and you're never forgetting that. Physically, shita, ushna, sukha, dukeshu, this is right from Matra Sparshita Konteya, cold, heat, pleasure, and pain. Samaha, the same word is used in the second line, samak. Sangha vivarjita. Sangha vivarjita, what does it say? Free from all association, and means bad association. That's repeating. Prabhupada says that sometimes happens. Also, you could take that as to be material attachment, free from material attachment. Sangha is used in that sense. Tulya, equal in, repeating in the same two verses here. Insult or praise. Silent means you don't speak nonsense. Satisfied. Santushto yena, somehow all satisfied. So how do you be satisfied with all of this? People are insulting you, you're in the cold and rain. Because you're plugged in to that source of satisfaction within. If you're remembering Krishna, you're glorifying Krishna, somehow you're serving him, maybe undergoing some austerity for his sake. That in itself brings such a satisfaction that you have kind of an armor against all these physical and emotional and mental, difficulties that may come. That's the idea. And because of that, you're not attached to any specific abode. This is one of the great austerities of the sannyasis. They're always on the move. That's the idea. They're traveling here and there, here and there. That means they can't put down roots. They don't get attached to any one place. So what do they become attached to? Preaching. Glorifying Krishna. You could see it with Srila Prabhupada. Even though he had palatial buildings at a certain point, 75, 76, he could have stopped anywhere. And sometimes he even said, now I think I'll stay here in Hawaii and write, but he never could because he would always get letters, he would get, the invitations everywhere, and he felt he had to go to enliven his devotees and take care of his movement. So that's a great austerity. But the idea is, no matter where you go, you always feel Krishna's presence. Prabhupada would say, I'm sitting here, when he was in New York, before he really got started, so much time he spent alone, trying to start the movement. But he said, I never feel alone. I always feel the presence of my spiritual master, the presence of Krishna. And what a valuable state of mind to be able to rely on that. Now people are stuck at home, and to do anything, going crazy. What to watch, what to hear. They're dredging old movies up. It's just a way of mitigating the loneliness, and it's so artificial and tragic, really. But to have, Prabhupada's on that boat coming across, such a difficulty, but he's there reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's feeling the presence of Lord Chaitanya, he's certainly feeling the presence of his spiritual master. Even after 2 heart attacks, he has, Krishna comes to him in a dream and says, "Don't worry, I'm taking charge of the boat." I mean, what a wonderful treasure to have that kind of consciousness where you can feel the presence of God at every moment. You're on top of a mountain or in the middle of a big city. So this kind of devotee is so dear to Krishna at every step. All right, let's finish the chapter. Please. I'll repeat it.
Then it says, when you, I'm sure, I don't know what to say when people ask this. I'm sure you had this question before, but when a devotee, once you recognize the devotee, should develop the good qualifications. But then it says, of course,
they develop automatically.
Look for them
Well, there's a twofold thing that happens. In other words, the practice of Krishna consciousness makes these possible, you know, and if you're really Krishna conscious, they'll be there automatically. But it does help to know them, because some of these you can practice tolerance. Someone insulting you, you know. Well, okay, I feel my eye, you know, my bile is growing, you know, but that's not, you know, that's an attack by Maya, you know. And Maya doesn't just attack by alluring you; she also attacks by insulting you. So then you'll say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, in other words, there's a certain amount of leeway here for many of these. Mauni is silent. Of course, it means to always speak of Krishna. Well, if you make it a point to always glorify Krishna and his devotees, then you won't be tempted to speak nonsense. You know. So there is a understand, just like you have this 26 qualities. There's a lot of overlap. You know, with those. Okay, so I think eats moderately. Well, that's in your control, you know. And you say, well, I shouldn't do this because the quality of a devotee to become dear to Krishna, you know. Okay, I'll give up that third helping of Halva. So the practice of Krishna consciousness makes these possible, and many of them, some of them will come automatically. Santushta, if you're really doing it, you know, Krishna consciousness right, you'll feel happiness in the kirtan and all the services. But at the same time, some of them more than others are somewhat within your own hand. You get the spiritual strength to act according to these and follow these, and then after some time, they're second nature. That's just the way it works. So there's a twofold role there, you know. Okay, text 20. Ye tu dharmam mitamidam yatoktam prayupasate shaddadhana matpadama bhaktaste tiva me priya. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Purport. In this chapter, from verse 2 through the end, from my aveshamano ye mam, fixing the mind on me, through ye to dharma mitamidam, this religion of eternal engagement, the Supreme Lord has explained the processes of transcendental service for approaching Him. Such processes are very dear to the Lord, and He accepts a person engaged in them. The question of who is better, one who is engaged in the path of impersonal Brahman, or one who is engaged in the personal service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was raised by Arjuna, and the Lord replied to him so explicitly that there is no doubt that devotional service to the Personality of Godhead is the best of all processes of spiritual realization. In other words, in this chapter, it is decided that through good association, one develops attachment for pure devotional service, and thereby accepts a bona fide spiritual master, and from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regulative principles of devotional service with faith, attachment, and devotion, and thus becomes engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This path is recommended in this chapter. Therefore, there is no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self-realization, for the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth, as described in this chapter, is recommended only up to the time one surrenders himself for self-realization. In other words, as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. In the impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth, one works without fruitive result, meditates and cultivates knowledge to understand spirit and matter. This is necessary as long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee. Fortunately, if one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness in pure devotional service, he does not need to undergo step-by-step improvements in spiritual realization. Devotional service, as described in the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, is more congenial. One need not bother about materials to keep body and soul together, because by the grace of the Lord, everything is carried out automatically. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of devotional service. So one would think, book is over. There it is, devotional service. Let's engage in it. Should surrender, engage in devotional service. But there's 6 more chapters, and many of the subject matters that will be covered have already been touched on, but they'll be more elaborately discussed. Like the modes of nature, there's a whole chapter there, 14, that was discussed in several chapters already, touched on. So there's several places like that. Even the 10th chapter, Prabhupada said that. After the first part of the 10th chapter, and Krishna ends with Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, Matak Sarvabhav. Today is these 4 essential verses. Arjuna accepts him. You are the Supreme Person. I accept everything you say is true. All right, pick up your bow. Let's go. But then he says, no. How shall I meditate on you in this world? And it's mentioned there in the purport that this is it for us. In other words, it's a kind of, it's like a big opera. In certain opera, there's certain crescendos, and arias and things. But then it goes on, the story goes on. And so the same way the Bhagavad Gita is coming back again to reiterate certain points and explore them. And so in the 10th chapter, we get all of these different, Krishna's identifying himself with the best of everything, basically, But then at the end, says, what's the need of all this? I'm... with a single spark of my splendor, I support the whole universe. And then in the 11th chapter, basically Arjuna is asking to see the universal form for people who are claiming to be God. And let me show you universal form. The whole thing. But the 12th chapter, very concise. It really kind of embodies the essential instruction of Bhagavad Gita. And if, as Prabhupada mentioned in this last purport, if one is ready to take it up, there's no need to go through all the other yogas, though you certainly to go on the impersonal side. That can help to get you going spiritually, distinguish matter from spirit. But the great miracle of this Krishna conscious movement is that Prabhupada left India, which is the land of all of this knowledge. Bhagavad Gita, everyone knows, Krishna. Because he really couldn't make any headway there. He tried, he had Jhansi, and then back to Godhead started, and Gaudiya Math. But he ended up really with nothing. In other words, he didn't have Jhansi anymore, and then he didn't have his family. But he had that faith in the order of his spiritual master. And he had, Lord Chaitanya's prediction, and it was obvious that he had to try his best, even at the elderly age, to try to start this movement. And so it's really, the story of Prabhupada's life and how this movement grew, is itself an inspiration for Krishna consciousness. Because to anyone who's a little open-minded, it shows the proof of Krishna's direct hand in making this movement a success, and how it spread, and so many miracles in Prabhupada's life. So that and of course the books. When you read this, there's no hint of a doubt here. It could be this way, it could be that way. Or like the professors. This is a very, very interesting bhakti view of the. Very nice explanation of the bhakti view of the Bhagavad Gita. Like there are other views which are equally valid. That's why we took out. I don't know if you've ever read that. There was a foreword in the Macmillan edition, in that mood. So it's very plain, and because we had the advantage of not knowing anything else, we hadn't worshipped this demigoddess or god from birth. We hadn't been exposed to Mayavad really officially, and so fortunate that we were. He says, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Just like Vijay was telling how he came, and I was rereading the offerings. I have to write the introduction, so I like to get Naranjan Swami was saying how he came. He's a student. I forget the name, in Boston somewhere, I think. One of the colleges there in Massachusetts, and so he's going into the bookstore in the campus to buy books for his courses, and there's a devotee sitting out there with a book table, dressed in regular devotee clothes. So he picks up a book, looks at it, looks at the devotee, says, "This is completely too weird," and puts it down. He goes inside, and then later on he saw the same devotee outside, sitting on the grass chanting japa. And all he saw was he was moving his head back and forth, and he seemed to be talking to himself. And he said, "Boy, I'm glad I didn't get involved with that." 2 years later, he walks into a bookstore and he gets Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I'm not sure if it was the unabridged or not, because it was 72. It was printed in 72. But anyway, maybe it was. And by this time, he's interested. He actually buys the book, and then he reads it every night, and it just struck him. He's reading the same words we're reading here, And he had said his attempts to enjoy, college life and in all kinds of ways that he'd been disappointed, So he was open to it, and he was receptive to the message, and then got us into association, obviously. And then describes his initiation. In his initiation letter, Prabhupada writes to the president he says, now keep him carefully. And then he advises, and Ranjan Swami said, those words, to this very day, I treasure those words that Prabhupada wanted me to be kept carefully, And it's such a, every devotee has his own story, But it's always, always within that story is some point at which Prabhupada's words, mostly in the books, or you hear something, or repeated by a devotee, but mostly directly from Prabhupada, they just strike something deep in, In other words, it breaks through all of the confusion and the doubt to the point where you think this really has meaning. This is something I want to try or dedicate my life to, So that's an indicative of the actual purity and genuineness of it. And this is what I've been realizing more in all these years working with Prabhupada's words. And why they're so precious, because they're so much different from all the other sounds you hear, which are materially motivated. This is another thing, is that all of these words that we hear and we read in Prabhupada's, the motive behind it is just to help us. There's no motive to write something to make money, or tout your own horn, or put forward some kind of material philosophy. He's simply channeling, if you will, what has come before, what he himself has realized, the words from Krishna through all the acharyas, and he's giving it in such a way that we can understand it. The language, English language, and it was difficult. Some of these to translate some of these concepts into English, but Jai did, and editors helped. The spiritual master, of course, and here it is. The choice is there. I mean, now, people. There's a crisis in people's sense of reality and truth, because there's so many lies flying all over the place, and with the internet, they're so powerfully presented and attractive that the people are totally confused. What's going on? And now with this crisis of the coronavirus, some people think it's a hoax. We got 90,000 people killed, dead, but it's still a hoax perpetrated. It's so scary to not have a foundation of shared truth and reality that you can live by. Even if it may be false, at least we share it and we're all living on it. But there's a million of them. So to have this foundation of truth spoken through the parampara received from Srila Prabhupada, this is a source of great freedom from anxiety. Even if we can't follow everything, we know what we should do, and we know what the final goal is, and we have full faith that that's reality. Okay, so are there any? Nothing? Okay. Hey, we got plenty more here. Start chapter 13. Nature, the enjoyer and consciousness, chapter 13. Arjuna Vacha, Prakatim Purusham Chaiva, Chaitram Chaitragyamevacha, Etad Vedadam Ichchami, Jnanam Geyam Chakeshava, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Idam Shariram Kaunteya, Chaitram Mitchabidhiyate, Etadyo Vetitam Prahu, Chaitragya iti tadvidaha. Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the knower of knowledge." Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." Purport. Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Chaitra, the field, Chaitragya, its knower, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all these, Krishna said that this body is called the field, and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is the field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. This field of activity is the body. And what is the body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or field of activity. Therefore, the body is called Chaitra, or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called Chaitragya, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age, he undergoes so many changes of body, and yet is still one person remaining. Thus, there is a difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living conditioned soul can thus understand that he is different from the body. It is described in the beginning, Dehinosmin, that the living entity is within the body, and that the body is changing from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and from youth to old age, and the person who owns the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly Chaitragya. Sometimes we think, I am happy, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a dog, I am a cat. These are the bodily designations of the knower. But the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from the things used. Similarly, we also understand by a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called Chaitragya, the knower of the field of activities, and the body is called Chaitra, the field of activities itself. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the relationship between the individual soul and the supersoul in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of the individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate under all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness, they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities, as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. That is also described. Now, starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with material nature, and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service, are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. This also is explained. So, suddenly we're starting a little different tack here. Arjuna is delving into, this would be called Sankhya, I believe, Prakriti Purusha. What is the Prakriti consists of? What is the Purusha? Now, the Purusha, of course, it's an interesting term, because the Purusha is the enjoyer, but we are not really ultimately Purushas. We're playing at being Purushas. Prakriti, who are bewildered and trying to be Purushas. But when you talk about the body, the physical body, then we're the Purusha of the body, even though constitutionally we're Prakriti. So that's mentioned here. Prakriti, the body, Purusha, the living entity, Chaitra, Chaitragyam. The Chaitra is made of the different elements. It's interesting that this is the field, because now you would commonly think, well, I have a larger field than just this body. right? I mean, I have a whole place where I work, where I live, all of the different people I know. I can drive off here. But you're experiencing all that environment through the senses of the body. So really, you may be anywhere, but if your senses aren't working right, then, you know, that doesn't help you. You can't interact with that material energy. So really, it's this body of the senses and the mind that's the field of activity for the soul. And Krishna will also say in the next verse that he's also the knower of the field. That's an important point. He's the super soul there, and that theme will go on in this chapter. So Prabhupada reiterates. Now, there's a little, if you go back to the original Gita, there's a little bit of confusion between knower and owner. You know, the knower of the field is obviously the soul, the individual knower. And he's playing it being the owner. The actual owner is Krishna. What is that? First mantra of the Isha Upanishad. Ishavasya. Ishavasya midam sarvam yatkinchit chigatyam gatena chaktena punyan makradar kasasiddhanam. The Isha, the supreme controller and the ultimate enjoyer, is Krishna. So he's the controller and owner of everything, even our body. But the whole problem is that we're claiming this separate ownership, even though this is really given to us. The senses, the body are given to us. And so Krishna consciousness means putting things back in their proper function. That realizing that Krishna is Rishikesha. He is the master of the senses. So that's one of the definitions of bhakti. You may know this word sarvopadi vinimuktam, tatpadatmena livaram, rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakta ruchite. Pure devotion actually is defined as to be free of these false designations that we have in relation to the body, the place of birth, the age, all of these different things, which has no pertinence for the soul. To be free of that, sarvopadi vinimuktam, tatpadatvena nirmalam, be completely pure, and with the senses, rishikena, with the senses, serve the rishikesha, the rishika-isha, the Supreme Lord of the senses. So that in that way, we actually set everything straight. Otherwise, we're in a reversed position. We're really prakriti, but we're acting as purusha. We're spirit, but we're acting as these material bodies, as if the material bodies are really ourselves. So to set it all straight means to accept the truth, the reality that we're part and parcel of Krishna, his servants, and these material bodies, which are now acting as our prison house, and their relation to the senses, all of that sense gratification and pleasure, plus the negatives, to begin using the body to connect to Krishna. And that's why Bhakti Yoga is a complete program for the soul to reconnect with Krishna using the facility of the body that is our very means of imprisonment when we forget Krishna. It's the old thing Narada Muni mentions, does not a thorn, can you take out a thorn with another thorn? So we're in these bodies now, what are we going to do to elevate our consciousness? Use the very body itself. There's this beautiful verse in the 87th chapter of the 10th canto. This is the prayers of the personified Vedas. I once started memorizing those as a really far out meter. But this is the only one I remember now. I have to review, get the others. So the Vedas is praying to the, Mahavishnu. Tvannadupatam kulai vidamatma sarit priyavat. Chadati ton mukhetvi tepi atmanicha. Nabadadamancha ho asadupasana yatmahano. Yudanushya brahme urusharira. Forget the last couple of syllables. So he's saying there, my dear Lord, the human body is perfectly suited to serve you. And when one actually serves you with this body, then the body becomes his best friend, like paraphernalia for service. And on your part, you're the super soul, and you're directing, and there's unity and there's harmony there. But alas, nabadadamantaho asadupasana, those who don't take their pleasure in serving you, they worship the material energy, asadupasanaya, mammon, Hano and atma hano, this is a virtual death for the soul. In other words, it buries him in matter. And far from, continuing to get human bodies, they lose the human body often, and they have to inhabit these fearful bodies which just produce a lot of suffering. And there's a beautiful purport there. Gopi Pranadana Prabhu wrote these commentaries. So that's really the situation we find ourselves in. We're given this, this human form of life, which is so rare. Labdvasu durlabhamidam bahusambhavante manusham. You get the human form after many, many births coming up. And artadham, it alone can give the value, the goal of life, the svarta. But it's temporary like all other bodies. Therefore, one can't waste time. Turna means immediately, without wasting any more time. Yateta, strive. Yateta napateta namitya, but as long as the body hasn't died and you have your senses about you. Strive for what? Nikshayasa, the ultimate good. It means liberation from this misconception around the body and go back to Godhead. Because in all the other forms we've inhabited, we've experienced all kinds of sense gratification, and it's just punak punashchavita chavanadam, chewing the chew. Prabhupada would love to quote that verse. And it's like throughout the Vedas, throughout the Bhagavatam, you'll find similar verses, like Rishabdev's, famous verse, the first verse, Nayam deho deha bhajang naloke krishtan kaman arate vipajangde. If you have a near deha, you have a human body. You shouldn't use it like the hogs. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. So the distinction there is between brahmasaukyam tvanantam, spiritual happiness which doesn't end, and material so-called happiness which does end and just results in misery. So that's these instructions are classic. And it's the same point is throughout the Bhagavata, throughout the Bhagavad Gita. One of my favorite verses coming up here in a little while is this 22, Purushak Pakatisto Hi. Bhunkte Pakati Jangonang Karanangona Sango Sadasa Joni Janmasu. That the living entity, the Purusha, again acting as the Prakriti acting as Purusha. The Purusha within Prakriti, Bhunkte Prakriti Jangonan, he experiences the different modes of nature, born out of Prakriti. Karanam Gunasango, as he chooses to associate with those modes, Gunasanga, that's the cause for him getting Sadasad Yoni Janmasu, births in good or bad forms or bodies, species. So this Gunasanga, that is the key element, how we choose under instruction to associate with the modes or dissociate with certain modes and cultivate other modes. And that serves as the foundation by which we can then proceed to cultivate bhakti, which takes us out of the modes entirely. So they're all going to be described here. Okay, any final comments or questions? Okay, then we'll end with a couple of poems. I forget the phrase, but it says one should end with something sweet. So, it's all been sweet in its own way. So, what was that verse oh yeah, I forgot the poem to that one. But, Aho aho biyanakale vaduyate. This is a theme for our age of the plague age here. Aho aho biyanakale vaduyate sudha sudara modalam pade pade dine dine chandana chandra shitalam yasho yashodatana yasigiyate. Because at every step they drink a flood of wondrous nectar sweet, whose cooling power sandal paste enhanced with camphor can't defeat. They feel as if the raging blaze of Kali's days had ne'er begun. How blessed are they who fill their days with praise of Shri Yashoda's son. Speaking of praise of Shri Yashoda's son, we have time for one more. This is a prayer from Rupa Goswami's Govinda Vrudavali, I believe. Bhujanga Ripuchandaka Spurudakanda Chudankore Niranka Shadraganchala Brahmana Bodha Bringam Brahme Patanga Duhitustati Vanakutir Keri Priye Padaspudatume Mohus Tvai Mukunda Shuddharati. Directly to Krishna he's praying. You wear the best of crests, a crown of perfect peacock plumes. Your dancing glances stun the bees meandering midst the blooms. You relish love play in a cottage by Kalindi's shore. O Krishna, may pure love for you be mine forevermore. as I was sussing out this verse when I first encountered it, I like to know what each word means. So the word is patanga in the third line. Patanga duhitu. And patanga I knew to mean one thing. It means flying. I thought it only meant a moth, a flying insect, because it's often used for that. I said, that can't be right. The daughter of the moth, So I looked it up. And patanga can also mean the sun that flies in the sky, that moves in the sky. So who's the daughter of the sun? The Yamuna. So on the bank of the Yamuna, there's a little cottage there. So there's a lot of prayers like that. That's the prayer. Whatever else you're going to pray for. Ainandatanuja kinkadam patitam ma vishame bhavambabho kripayata papada punkaja stita dhuli sadrishang vachintaya. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace, consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. Well, it's 8:09. And I think we can maybe open those gates or whatever. But we should get ready for the kirtan and the arti. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, the internet. Hari Bol.